And I gotta say, this is probably the actual first time you ever seen a black man swim to a fight.
Wait, you forgot about Montgomery Boy.
No, this came out before. So
oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's what
So
inspired.
Montgomery Boy might have actually been inspired here.
See what Calder's doing for the black community.
Hi, I'm Shamar Griffith, codenamed Comic Shams.
And I'm Andrew Tejada, codenamed Arate. This season, we're getting whelmed for DC's greatest sidekicks and covering every episode of Young Justice on...
Yet another DC animated podcast, part of the Forgotten Entertainment family. Welcome to yet another episode of yet another DC animated podcast. My name is Shamar Griffith, codenamed Comic Shams.
And I'm Andrew Tejada, codenamed Arate.
Andrew and I have known each other since 1996.
That was the year Smart Water won an award. And I know what you're thinking, but it's not that one. It's a device, a liquid containing a code that can be seen under ultraviolet light, intended to be applied to valuable items. So if they're stolen and recovered by police, the original owner can be determined after sampling it in a lab.
Okay, that's really kind of cool technology. What happened to that?
I don't know.
And why is Smart Water out here thriving and we just buying bottles of it? Meanwhile, this is way better.
I have no idea why we haven't heard more of this. It's not used more, but also coincidentally, Glacéau Smart Water was also founded the same year. So maybe people got them confused and was scared. I don't know.
Or even worse, everybody who's out there buying Smart Water, you're all being tracked right now.
Stick to Dasani. # definitely not sponsored.
But speaking about the Wakandan of waters, I feel we're going to be talking about a very magical, scientific, but actually not too much science in this one, of a very magical place. Right?
Not any science I could see.
At least it won't be as bad science as we saw in Batman and Throne of Atlantis. No characters would be hurt by water pressure. That is right, because we are still in our DC universe, still in our Young Justice universe as Earth 16. We are covering episodes 14 through 17 of Young Justice Phantoms. This is also called the Aquaman arc here, because once again, we are focusing on the original set of heroes from the original team. And this one in particular is going to be focused on Kaldur'ahm, who went by the codename of Aqualad. But thankfully in season 3, we recognize that, you know, he gave him a seat at the table and my boy became Aquaman. So we are going to be covering, once again, episodes 14 through 17, titled Nautical Twilight, Ebb Tide, Emergency Dive, and Leviathan Awakes.
How do we do it in backwards, though?
I almost started saying something about Twilight, and this sounded so bad. I felt like I would have got canceled for what I was about to say. We'll figure that out, or we'll just leave it to Satano or whoever brave soul out there is listening and wants to try it out. But fun fact, the first 3 episodes of our batch here are the 3-part premiere of the second half of the season. So once we left y'all with the Zatanna arc, that closed in December of 2020, I believe, or 2021. And then we came back. We had to wait 3 months now before we got any new episodes on HBO Max, which was, again, going by HBO Max at the time. The studio responsible for the animation was Studio Mir, and the timing of these episodes is from April 19th through July 3rd. 4 episodes with a crazy time jump.
We'll get there.
Yes. And once again, because we were focusing on our boy here, this is going to be called the Kaldur'ahm Aquaman episode. And speaking of, Kaldur'ahm is voiced by Carrie Payton. We've got following up after him is Robbie Damon, who has been voicing Spider-Man as of late on the Disney Marvel side of animation. He is voicing Wind and Danmuth. Speaking of another Marvel animation person, we got the voice of Captain America as Roger Craig Smith is voicing Orm, the Ocean Master. It's quite a difference in personalities. David Kaye is returning from our last set of episodes once again today as the voice of Vandal Savage. as well as his son, who is returning from mysterious circumstances, as we have Arian, the first king of Atlantis, is returning here today. We first introduced her in our attempt of trying to create kind of like a luchador wrestling style announcement. But today we have Tia Sakar from The Good Place, who is voicing Dolphin, who is now going by the name of Delphise as her official government name.
Thank God.
I know they must have been doing something with this next one here because it is kind of funny that both the paternal figures in Kaldur'ahm's life are voiced by Phil Lamar, as Phil Lamar is voicing King Orin, aka Arthur Curry, aka the first Aquaman, and Calvin Durham, his actual stepfather here.
From San Diego.
We got Tara Strong, who is voicing Cal's mother here, Shaylania. And finally, we have Queen Mira, who is voiced by somebody who's this was very shocking for me because the more I heard her voice, the more I was like, I know this person from somewhere. Is her name is Kath Sushi. However, you know her as the voice of Phil and Lil from the Rugrats. Hubert Farnsworth from Futurama, Linka and Captain Planet, Mira Bridger in Star Wars Rebels, as well as a bunch of other characters in Star Wars history, and even going all the way back to Kanga in the Winnie the Pooh series.
Kanga? Okay, that
Yes.
one caught me off guard. I was like, okay, I know Phil and Lil are here, but Kanga?
Yeah, it is wild. I was not expecting those two to have like everybody here to have the same voice actress. But while we were left here in shock, we gave you everything you need to know. So let's zeta tube over to the beginning of Nautical Twilight.
So we're gonna cover a large span of time here. We go all the way back to the day that Artemis found out that Superboy died. Aquaman and Dick are by each other. I do want to say Calder from now on because you'll see later with the multiple Aquaman.
Mm.
So Calder is just here reflecting, saying like all this mourning that's going on doesn't even seem real. And Dick actually steps forward and says, I think you need to take a break, man. You didn't take off time to mourn Tula. You didn't take time to mourn Wally. In fact, I left you holding the bag on that one. You should take a break before it breaks you. But Aquaman insists, no, I am still in charge of a lot of things. I have to take care of a conference down in Poseidonus. So I'm going to go and do that. And we already know things are going to go bad because Ocean Master is back.
Yeah. This is, this threw my head for a roll here because the last time we saw him, his head was rolling after Lady Shiva had decapitated him back in season 3 when he was doing extreme babysitting, or creepy babysitting rather. So this is where we hop on over to this conference center where we see that Lagan and Arthur are trying to navigate what's going on. Mostly there's a wide, oh my gosh, I'm mad I just got this reference of King Arthur at the round table. He is present with every single delegate of the different nations of that make up Atlantis. So he's also there with them is Queen Mira, who uses a translation spell so that everyone will be able to understand each other. And this is where we get the introduction of Volko, Ondine, Garth, Calder, all who are of have seats within particular segments like of justice and war and weaponry and all that kind of stuff. And then we also get introduced to the various city states that make up Atlantis and their representatives, such as Lord Ronald, Prime Minister Topo, who for people he's going to be in the Aquaman 2 Lost Kingdom live action movie that's coming up soon, I believe. If it doesn't get canceled again.
Let's go.
Emissary Coral, and our favorite, much other people, including the first citizen of Shaeris, Calvin Durham, who is, as we know, Cal's father, and most importantly, King Nanue Sha'ark, who is a shark.
Nice callback.
Yeah.
So they're trying to get this meeting rolling, but one point of tension already is the fact that Zebel, a delegate from Zebel, which is Mira's hometown, isn't here. They didn't send anybody. They're like, you know what? We're going to sit out this seven seas meeting. So the rest of the delegation is already feeling disrespected and feeling like they're not going to get much done if everybody's not fully in. Um, and while this heaviness is going on, they decide let's adjourn the meeting until Zebel sends literally anybody. Um, and we get to meet even younger Justice as Aquaboy is playing around with our favorite undersea nemesis, Lagoon Man.
Yeah, it looked like he got a little beard or something going on, like a goatee. Also he's going to be a father. That's another thing that kind of dropped on.
Surprise. So we also get reintroduced to Dolphin, who is now going by Delphis. I have no idea why they made this change, but I am happy so I don't have to spend this episode calling out Dolphin all the time. As they're gonna have a nice afternoon, make the best of the adjourned meeting, we hard cut to somewhere where Superboy wakes up. He is fully transparent and he's next to one of the Legionnaires that was on the ground and recognizes they're both cold. So automatically assumes they're dead.
Mm-hmm.
And while we get a cliffhanger on that, we find out that algae under the sea is where it's at.
Oh yes, because algae apparently is let's just say an adult beverage. We don't or adult meal. We don't it's something. But during this time, Wind is with Kaldur. Just to reiterate for people, back in season 3, it was shown that Kaldur is actually in a relationship with this man. So showing that Kaldur that now identifies as a member of the LGBTQ community. He is there with his partner, and the two of them are hanging out with Delphis because Delphis is commenting on how much nicer Poseidonus is compared to Shaeris. It might I was almost going to say it's a lot like we go to see in certain parts of New York, but I mean it is what it is. But they're talking about this and how there is a lot of dialogue about how the city states are feeling this way about how certain areas of theirs look so pale in comparison to areas of Poseidonus and one equality for everything. So as they're having this conversation, they do see that one of the city state prime ministers, Lori Lemaris, is there. Lori is not a dolphin, a mermaid, actually. So this is, I mean, mermaid for our eyes. So Wind and Lori seem to have a history, as Wind apparently had sided with a set of purists back in the day. Unsure quite what that means as of now. We'll find out later on. However, someone does come in to interrupt, and that is King Shark, who's a shark who's quite upset over one more time of the negative impacts that Lori's nation has had on his area. This leads into basically a bar argument that gets turned into a bar fight because Kaldur has swum up and knocked King Shark in the face with a punch so hard. And I gotta say, this is probably the actual first time you ever seen a black man swim to a fight.
Wait, you forgot about Montgomery Boy.
No, this came out before. So
that's right. That's right. Yeah. That's what it's.
So Montgomery Boy might have actually been inspired here.
See what Kaldur's doing for the black community. Fortunately, it doesn't. No chairs are thrown. No one's thrown off the docks this time. They decide to cut the fight, keep the tensions down. So elsewhere, we cut back to Violet, who, after waiting for her not brother, I don't really know how to describe the relationship, because she's assuming the body of his dead sibling. So let's say her stepbrother. Waits for the stepbrother to leave the house and goes to meet up with her mother. And in a really nice bit of writing, they both kind of recognize each other and by calling each other names, but realizing that's not their identity. Violet's like, "Mom, but you're not my mom." In response, her mother goes, "Gabrielle, but actually you're Violet." So they have this moment where they're sitting down, and we get a little background that Violet was able to get visas for her sibling and mother. And there's also a nice bit of dialogue that is so realistic, where her mother says, "I was an eye surgeon." in Karak, but here I sell sunglasses
Mm.
until my medical license and credentials can be transferred over somehow. As they're enjoying the small talk, she's like, okay, why are you really here, Violet? And that's when Violet reveals that she is here to follow up on conversations that have been happening in the background, that she wants to learn more about Islam and Islam faith. As we're about to start this serious conversation, we cut to Bishop Beluga. And that's the transition the show did, so that's what I'm giving you.
Yes. Bishop. It is very sudden. It really is. You get introduced to Bishop Beluga, who is wearing a hat that is way too big for him, and he is here to represent Zebul. Of course, though, King Orn is underwhelmed. He's quite upset over the fact that his father-in-law continues to almost disrespect the proceedings that he's been trying to do. So he calls this, with everyone now present, he calls this conference to order. Immediately, this turns into an absolute shit show, though, because King Sha'ark, he is going after Lori about the way that her land has been taking over the area of which is his feeding grounds for his people, and he wants some kind of reparations for that. At the same time, everybody is still going back and forth over the lack of work that's being done to make sure that everybody is getting that same level of respect that Poseidon is getting. There's even a call out to at one point that Kaldur'ahm of Shares, formerly of San Diego, shouldn't even be there. And he's probably there because he's a Nepo, well, not Nepo baby, a Nepo
Nepo
parent?
Daddy.
Nepo
Nepo
daddy.
Daddy.
Yeah. Oh, that sounded nasty. But with his Nepo daddy status, it's really causing a quick downfall of these proceedings. Of course, though, because we were in Young Justice, we love these hard cuts. We immediately jump back over to Superboy's dimension, where he does figure out that they can't be dead. He and the girl that he's seeing there that's unconscious laying before him, because he can sense his heartbeat. He can see that he can hear her heartbeat and see that she's breathing. And he decides to pick her up to just jump around to see if they can find some kind of exit in some way, shape, or form to head back home in some way. At the same time, though, an attack has begun and is done by Ocean Master, who has arrived with a glowing trident of some sort.
Yes, and if you've seen, I guess, pretty much any Aquaman movie ever, you know that's no good. Orm shouldn't have a trident.
It's like you should not even have a fork.
Yeah. I also do want to quickly mention that another when they're when they're shouting out the Nepo Daddy's lack of credentials, they're like, "You betrayed Manta, took his woman, and went undersea."
Right.
I just wanted to mention that line because this San Diego man is a true savage. Vandal Savage would be proud. So now Orm is there boxing everybody at the conference, and King Arthur is absolutely clowned. I can see why he lost the title of Aquaman because my man is out with one punch. Um, Mirror's magic is not working, and even the power of the thruple is not working either. All three of them together can't do anything. So Delphis has to hit him with the solar flare technique, as seen in Dragon Ball Z. And even that's just a distraction. So eventually, out of nowhere, a man wielding lightning, unfortunately not black lightning because he cannot survive these deep pressures, comes in and just saves the day. He instantly stops Orm right in his tracks. And Aquaman, the OG King Arthur, swims away from this battle, having accomplished absolutely nothing. We do cut back over to Violet. We've had several conversations with Violet, but for the sake of time, we're condensing into a summary of what's happening. And she talks about the hijab and how that is, should I wear it? Should I not? And her mother says, it's a reminder of faith. You choose whether to don it. Some people see it as a reminder of doing good, like superhero costumes. Some people see it as a sign of humility, so that you have to look past physical appearance and really get to know someone. So she her mother's constant theme is that Islam is a religion with an an open meanings, and different interpretations of lessons. So just take from that what you will if you're interested in pursuing this journey. And they kind of end the conversation talking about the notion of God. And in a really bizarre comparison, when they're talking about God, Violet thinks about Granny Goodness and how she proclaimed herself to be a god, which I didn't think was a thing, unless I missed something.
I'm
The
not.
rest of the conversation is great, but that comparison was a little jarring to see Granny Goodness in a conversation about Islam.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe it's because of the fact that they kept referring to them as new gods and like Violet being, still relatively new to this world, still understanding the concept of this. So like I hope that at some point someone will correct her and be like, no, no, Granny Goodness was not a god whatsoever. She was we do that is no god. But it is a very nice conversation. And it also does during at one point her mother or her her this motherly figure that she now has does share with her that she does know that Violet is the superhero Halo as well. So that's nice, also a nice moment for them because it is showing that they can have a full, candid conversation without Violet trying to hide something more from herself, from this person. Meanwhile, we hop back over to the conference where everybody's recovering. Um, Also going to share too that Lagoon Boy or Lagan, he is the person that we had mentioned that was in the thruple here, the one that's also pregnant. So he does tend to both his I'm not entirely too sure what to what
Oh,
if there were
he does
were
refer to them as husband and wife.
okay, yeah, I
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure. Okay, yeah, he does
Mhm.
tend to his husband and wife. Meanwhile, everybody is still trying to figure out who was the guy that like took on Orm and was able to defeat him so easily when they all struggled. This is when Mira keeps mentioning a prophecy to Orin. And Orin's just like, yo, we can't talk about that right now because everybody is injured and we need to check in to see one, if anyone was hurt, two, if the if Beluga Boy thing, if he's good because he's the only representative we got, and also most importantly, who can we send out to see if Ocean Master might still be around? And this is where we kind of get a bit of a hard cut here because Ocean Master does race back to his underwater cave fortress thing, which is literally just a cave. And he's there with his assistant Danuth, who he's questioning too. It's like, do you know who this person was? And Danuth is very scared. He's like, I don't know who he was, Prince Orm. And this is when Orm takes off his mask and says, I will no longer be going by Prince. My true name now is Ocean Master. And
He's Nova Comics.
yeah, where you got yeah, word. But in another scene, though, is the after credit scene, we do see one person who has decided to take on a new identity of sorts as Violet Harper is having this conversation with Harper Row, and Violet shares that after the conversation and the visit that went with Madia, she decided that she doesn't really adhere to the genders of like male or female. She doesn't really feel that she's she her. So because of the fact that she knows that she's part Gabrielle and part Mother Box, she decides that her true gender is non-binary, and moving forward, she would prefer to go by they them pronouns. And Harper is just very happy to introduce Violet to the world as they are the best person that she knows.
And I'm glad they took this moment because they did have a smaller beat about this in a previous season when Artemis asked about pronouns.
Mm-hmm.
But it is nice that they take the time to let Violet fully express, so there's no ambiguity about it. Um, so as we go into, we're reeling over the prophecy of the super legendary super duper underwater sand, and what will happen next to the Ocean Master. We head into Ebb Tide, where Superman is enjoying a nice piece of pie, presumably, and then maybe key lime if he's hanging out with Loki. And it's interrupted by two Legionnaires pulling up, and they're like, "Yo, can you, Superman? Can we need Superman right now? Like, we don't need you eating pie." And that hard cut, we go back to the kingdom where everyone is like, yo, King Arthur, you really messed that one up, bro. Like you didn't do anything for us. So there's unrest everywhere. And even he recognizes I gotta do more. This is not enough. But again, we don't have time to get into that because we got to go to the adventures of the lost Superboy.
Yeah, Superboy is here. He is hopping from rock to rock, leaping in single bounds while carrying this unconscious girl. And the more he's trying to keep himself sane in there, he's just having these one-sided conversations with her. And he's like, maybe I should call you something rather than just say calling you whatever I think about calling you. And he announces to himself and the crowd that he's decided to call this girl Ghosty, which he admits is not the best name. He's not really good with naming things. But he still says it's better than Coma Girl. And I gotta say, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I think that tested well.
Mm-hmm.
I think many 10 out of 10 dentists agreed on this one as well.
So as he's hopping around, he is using his infrared to keep track of where they can go because he does see that there's a heat trail and he's hoping that will lead to somewhere useful. And as he's jumping from rock to rock, unfortunately, that heat trail turns into this giant monster fish-like thing that the only way I can describe it is as that fish from like Finding Nemo when it had the little ball, the lantern fish, I think they're called.
Yeah.
But it was like this with a tail, and it scared the bejesus out of me. I did not like it, and I too was yelling out my all, as Superboy was when this thing was coming at him.
Yeah, because it can hit him, but he can't hit it. So he gets some deep scratches. Um, and as we find out what's left on the cliffhanger, what's going to happen to him, we go back under the sea and learn more about the prophecy. And basically, we essentially learn that what's happening right now is starting to line up with the prophecy. Three people. There's supposed to be a great calamity where three Atlanteans step up and stop it, and then after that, the crown is revealed, and the new ruler is crowned. So Orin, I do give him the credit. Orin Arthur, interchangeably. I do give Arthur the credit here, where he's like, okay, a lot of this seems a little too convenient. Maybe somebody's trying to fake it to pull one over on us. So he pulls that out in the environment. Meanwhile, Aquaman Kaldur is at home, and his parents are calling him up and saying, "Hey, then we think you're stretched too thin. I think you're doing too much. You need to take a break. By the way, we sucked as parents." And if you think I'm exaggerating, no, they do a flashback where Aquaman was working on the streets to
Facts.
try to support his family, and get through. So while his mother was suffering from depression and his stepfather was out on the streets, they Calder stepped up. He was the adult. He took the classes. He became a warrior. So they're saying, we really appreciate you being the adult of the house while we were playing around like kids, but now it's the time for you to be you. And he's like, you know what? There's another emergency, so I'm gonna go deal with that.
Yeah, because timing of this episode was on May 14th, and if we remember from the Zatanna arc, that was when the Chaos Lords were just like, we don't like Clarion anymore, so we're just gonna set the world on fire with the child. And this is the thing that they have to attend to. Which, funny thing is, also ties very well to the prophecy due to the fact that there was supposed to be a Red Sea. So there's a giant pillar of fire coming out in the middle of the city. Of course, we gotta handle that. We know it was solved. However, before we get into how the Atlanteans solved it, we gotta hop back over to the skies of Metropolis, where Superman flies up to meet up with Saturn Girl and Chameleon Boy. He shares that his good friend Clark told him that they wanted to meet him, much to both of their surprise, because it's just like, dude, we called you Superman. We know it's you. They're having this conversation where Saturn Girl and Chameleon Boy telling him that we don't have too much time to explain truly what's going on, but listen to us in the fact that we're from the future and we need your help in figuring out something in dealing with Superboy because we were supposed to prevent his death. However, we were able to do so some time ago, but something happened up now that we were failed to do so, and that might mean that our entire existence might come into to a situation of despair. and they offered to do a telepathic connection, but Superman's just like, nope, you're not getting in my mind, which he said so angrily that I was just like, I good point. But did something happen to you in the past where you were like, nah, no telepaths?
Yeah, some same thing that happened with monkeys and robots, I suppose. We do get some details here that the Legionnaires can't go back because their time sphere was broken. And they're only there because the bioship got there. And he was like, Legionnaires, that's all you have to say, because I trust you now, because you're in the bioship. So we hop around a little bit here. Again, Superboy is in trouble, trying to trying to fight, but doesn't make much ground at all, actually. So we go back under the sea, where now in this Red Sea, um, Mira is trying to use her magic to hold it back single-handedly with this giant construct. Um, and Aquaman wants to help, but he's completely useless here.
By
All
which you
he
mean Orin, King Orin. So.
Yes, King Orin. God, this is gonna see. This is why the arc is so tricky. Orin can't do anything but send the fish away. That's all he can do. And even when Lagoon Man's best friend Blubber, you guys remember Blubber, right? From all the episodes, everyone knows him. Blubber gets in trouble, can't swim fast enough underwater, so
This is the funniest thing because my man was working hard. I'm not gonna lie, Blubber was working mad hard trying to get away.
And yes, unfortunately, it is also a fat joke. I don't know why this is happening, but Orin nearly dies trying to save Blubber, and he's only saved by the intervention of Orm, who, using the trident, is able to help Mira hold back the Red Sea. Kaldur here is protecting Mira while she handles the construct. So now they're working together to try to stop the calamity. Else back where on Earth, above the seas, we see that the Legionnaires have come to a good agreement with Superman. They're like, hey, just in case all this goes sideways, be at Happy Harbor 10 years from now at noon. We can't tell you why, just be there. It was giving me real Android vibes from Dragon Ball Z.
Mm-hmm.
Be at X Island a few months from now. Take your heart meds, Goku. So they also express that at this point, they don't know if the reset works. They don't know if anything they're doing in the timeline is taking. So they're just going to have to hope for the best. And back under the sea, Orm makes a good point. Who wants to be master of a dead ocean, as he now fully commits to working with Mira again?
And while the three of them, actually Kaldur, Orm, and Mira are all working together, we hop back over to this area where Superboy is trapped in. He's still battling this creature. He has to fight this thing somehow. So he ends up dropping Ghosty. Unfortunately, at one point, as he tries to hit the creature, he notices that his hand goes right through, and he realizes that it's just like before. He has to believe that he can hit it. So he does so, and the more that he's able to land one hit, but the more that he realizes that he's putting Ghosty in danger, he's realizing that his anger is the reason why this creature keeps coming after him. So he takes a beat, he thinks about the things that calm him down, and we get this really nice dream scene of him working on a motorcycle. It's just the sound of him using a wrench to turn one of the screws on there, and it's just him, Wolf, Spear, and McGann just together. Definitely post engagement, and the creature now is able to go right by him and doesn't have to worry about anything all. But we do have to worry about what's happening in Poseidon this, because as Mira and Orm are still trying to use their magic to collapse this thing, the stranger, the hooded dude, comes up once again and yells out together as he provides additional beam of energy to dissipate the giant pillar of fire. And by the work of all of them here, everybody was able to see that the three have come together to quell the Red Sea. And everybody starts yelling out, the prophecy, the prophecy, the prophecy.
The Super Saiyan has arrived. So as the people keep chanting, we cut back to above the surface where at the Garrick home of Senior Flash, Senor
Senior
Flash,
Flash. Senior Flash.
Senior, I got it. The Legionnaires show up to see Kid Flash. And I bet you're wondering what's going to happen with that. Don't worry about it. We're not covering that today because the show's not going to cover it in the next few episodes. So we just get a quick post credits where Vandal says, "Oh, we have a new plan. Um, let's keep some key assets off world." Oh, and because this happened so quickly, by the way, Orm immediately after saving Atlantis with everybody else tries to attack Mira. Once again, not much anyone can do. But the new guy hits him one time with some lightning. Aquaman comes in with the one punch, just wanting. Wait, God, this Aquaman thing. Orin comes in with the one punch to his brother, just wanting to do something this episode, and captures his brother. And as we have all these chess pieces in place, we dive into emergency dive.
Nice one. We open up now. It has been a couple of weeks, so now is on June 1st. We open up to Happy Harbor, where McGann has arrived with Baby, the new bioship, and she's brought it over to the car house where Forager is staying, and Forager's wearing a graduation cap. We'll talk about this later on, but Forager is just happy to meet Baby, and he admits that even though he's saddened to hear about the retirement of his old friend, he's happy to welcome a new one. And as they're talking about friends and family, this is what prompts Forager to ask again, like, have you talked to Garfield? And she's like, no, I've done like a couple of calls, and he was with us, but she doesn't really say that she's actually talked with him since he left Mars. And as she's telling him things about like things that she does know, Forager tells her like, yo, Gar hasn't been on missions. He hasn't really left the house. He and Perdita actually broke up. Like, you should really go see him. And we're left with that. We get the title sequence, of course, because this is fire title sequence. We hop back over now to Poseidonus and the Science Center, where everyone is running tests on Arian. It's Mira, Orin, Volko, and Blubber. Didn't realize Blubber was chief scientist over here. My bad. They're running tests on him because they just want to see if he actually is who he says he is. Because as we learned from the Zatanna arc, Arian was the first king of Atlantis, which they revealed he was actually Arian in the previous episode. Again, it was so quick you missed it. So now they're testing his magic, and the more they test it, the more they're like, the results are inconclusive because we don't have the technology to test certain things like this. However, Mira is able to tell that his magic is such of a different strain from hers that the only thing that she can assume is that it's probably some kind of older version. And this is where we're wondering, where Orin is asking, like, maybe we could do some kind of DNA test. And rightfully, Arian's just like, we didn't really collect DNA samples like 12,000 years ago. Like, we didn't even know that was a thing.
They do mention, though, that he does match for Batman's sample of Savage's DNA. How?
Yeah, and Cassandra Savage's too.
How did they get that, my boy? Got some
saying Batman be
for
doing
you.
some illegal collection. I'm just saying.
We should also mention a month has passed between episodes. Because I think honestly it was because they wanted to line up the events of where the timeline was left at the end of the Zatanna stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess, yeah, a month passed after the child and chaos.
Yeah, it was a couple weeks, which also does make me question, because it does feel like time might work differently wherever Superboy is. Because I think, wait, actually, was the last episode when he actually saw the bus?
No, he hasn't done that yet.
Okay, so yeah, it does get a little confusing. So time might work a little differently where Superboy is, because at some point we do know that he comes across that bus, and if it was supposed to all happen during the Zatanna arc, then maybe the bus was time jumping a little bit. We don't know, but Um, speaking of Superboy, actually, we do find out that he's still in this ghost dimension, and he's now starting to hallucinate his McGann, who's helping him to push through to get to the other side of things, acting as a cheerleader for him, giving him advice about jumping and leaping tall rocks in a single bound. But of course, though, we have to head back over to Arian and Poseidon this because now they decide that maybe it's time for them to see if they can finally find something that has been lost for 12,000 years.
Yes. So they figure the best way to test if Arion is who he is to get his crown. And it has been lost for a long time. Orin, knowing that going after the crown would imply that he's fully given into the prophecy, when he just wants to disprove it, he says this has to be an undercover mission. So Kaldur, assemble your team, do whatever you got to do, just find out, get the crown in time. And we also get some background on Arion, because everyone's like, bro, why don't you just step forward? Why don't you just take the crown? And he explains, look, it's my fault Atlantis sank. Not really, but he
Right.
blames himself. We were all there. We know what happened.
It was your daddy.
Yeah.
Or
So
granddaddy?
granddad, yeah.
Granddaddy.
Yeah, we know it's rough.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so he carries his guilt and he just kind of wants to get away from it. He doesn't want to take the responsibility of the crown at all. But while he contemplates what he's going to do next, McGann finally confronts Beast Boy, calls him out about dissing Perdita for leaving the show, and for being too dependent on sleeping pills. And Beast Boy hits back saying, like, I know these are all symptoms of depression. I know. And I've had experiences. People have died around me. I know how to get through. But she insists that it is different this time and something needs to change for him. And on that note, back to undersea adventures.
Yeah, so we head on over to the home of Roden, Coral, and Lagan, our throuple here, as Lagan is very reluctant, but knows he has to join in on this mission that Aquaman Calder has assigned to him. At the same time, Coral and Roden are very they're just a little worried because they're worried that he might miss the birth of their child here, and he promises that he'll be back in time. We then hop on over to Calder and Wynn's home, where Delphis is uh, hearing the two of them argue because Wynn is quite upset that Calder has continuously gone on missions and has even accepted this very big one. Meanwhile, he hasn't taken a break at all. And I gotta say, it gave it like a really real look about specifically as a black man. I understand this notion of just like, you can't take that break because it feels like you're not allowed to. And
Mhm.
Calder is going through every single thing that I personally have even said to myself. It was just like, if I've been hurt or if I didn't have really the time to do it, I was like, I'll make the time. I have to do it. It's my duty. I have to complete this task if I must. So this was really eye opening for me personally because I was just like, with time I've worked through this stuff, but seeing and hearing this stuff in an animated sense, I was like, holy crap, I was a lot like that. I couldn't swim underwater, but I was a lot like that. Um, and Calder says, I'll take my rest after we find Ocean Master, who has been missing for weeks now, apparently. And Delphis wants to join in on this mission, but Calder refuses to let her join because she's not trained to do so. Meanwhile, as they head on to the mission, um, we hop back over to Connor, who is still prepping himself for a lot of these long jumps that he has to take. Now he has a new form of encouragement as the ghost version of Wally West is coming to tell him that, yo, you can do it. You just got to make it to the next step. And this is where it gets a little dark because he starts saying things like, we might be dead, but we're not in heaven. We're not in hell. We're in some kind of purgatory. So all that matters is just getting to the next rock to figure out what's happening next. And that's the only thing that matters.
And I do have to commend Nolan North performance here, where there's this refrain where he keeps saying, it's a long way to jump. And
Mm,
every time he says it, he gets more tired, he gets more depressed.
mm.
He's the hope just drains from his voice. So I really commend Nolan North on. I mean, he's an incredible voice actor. He doesn't need my praise, but I'm giving it to him anyway. He, he's really hits that note and makes it really hit. Elsewhere, we find that Orin has gotten a hold of Ocean Master, shoved him in prison again, and we I don't think we've ever gotten an explanation of their relationship. We can just always assume. I'm just inserting every Orm and Aquaman relationship in here
Yeah,
that
pretty much.
Orm wants the crown, uh, Orin doesn't give it to him, and they fight. And he goes on this rant where he's like, I was here in prison for my 6 year bid that messed me up. I don't know what happens in these Atlantean prisons that messed him up so bad. They look nice, but he says, all the time you visited me, I was mad. And this is where Oren goes, what did you say? He's like, yeah, those times you visited me. He's like, okay, well, this visit is over. And he swims away, consumed by a thought. Back on the surface, a we get an impromptu intervention where that starts with Static and Blue Beetle continuing the trend of criminally underusing Static Shock
Mm-hmm.
in this series. So they try to approach Beast Boy by going in really upbeat, really enthusiastic, reminding him of all the good things that happened. But their routine feels so rehearsed that Beast Boy immediately rejects it and calls on for the next person to try their hand at intervening.
And that next person is Cassie, aka Wonder Girl, who following at the beginning of the events of this series, we see that she kind of takes more of a leadership role of the outsiders as Beast Boy is taking that step back due to his depression. Cassie is just like, I need you back on this team because it's not even just like a team thing anymore. When I first decided to take on as the leader, when you decided to go to Mars, I figured it was just for a brief period of time. However, I'm not ready to lead this team. I need you, Beast Boy, who has been my mentor, my friend, who has helped me through this journey to raise me up and help me because I need that person back. And he fires back, well, I had to lead this team by myself with no help whatsoever. So you just got to do it too. And I was like, to stop because, like, basically your whole entire tenure was orchestrated by everybody else. So as Beast Boy tells her that, like, look, if you want to be a leader, you got to figure it out yourself. I'm not here to hold your hand. Um, we now take our hands and bring them to our face in shock because we now got to hop back over to Zebel, where we meet up with Rias Neris, the father of Mira, who is being antagonized by a crowd of protesters who are now sharing that they are in opposition to Orin's rule, to Rias's rule, and they believe that the only person who should be ruling all of Atlantis to truly be the High King is Arian, and Nereus is feeling that opposition from his people as well. This does lead into a great cover for Wind, Calder, and Lagan, who are able to get into a certain area of Zebel called the Grave of Legends, where it's like, but basically beneath the seafloor, it's like under the sea.
Under the sea. I resisted this long.
We did, yeah. There were a couple times I almost said it too, but I will probably sing it a little later today. And as they're swimming along, trying to get deeper into the ocean, they come across the statue of Arian, who Lagan says looks a lot like Wind.
Yeah. So as they are coming across this crown journey, we see that elsewhere Oren's going on his own journey, and he goes to the shady back alley where three members of the gang are immediately ready to box the king of the ocean. I understand because his L record is severe lately,
Mm-hmm.
but he's like, I ain't got time for all that. So he summons a gang of sharks saying, y'all really want to talk to them or you want to talk to me? So he gets where he wants to. Back on the surface, we have Robot Man from the Doom Patrol taking time to his turn at the intervention. And we really go deep here where Cliff says all the Doom Patrol died. They sacrificed themselves to save the world, but you were there. You saved me. When I was lost, I thought I was dead, but I came back and you saved me. You saved my life. And here's a really genuinely affecting moment where Beast Boy says, I recognize that I did that, but I don't want to be the savior. I don't want to help you. I don't want people to have to lean on me. And Cliff still tries to push push Beast Boy to really see the good he does. And Beast Boy hits him with, "You came back from the dead to give that speech?
Mm.
Jesus Christ, boy. Oh my God, Beast Man. Maybe you've been studying under Vandal Savage."
He's a
Um,
savage beast.
oh, there we go. That's what I was looking for. Um, and McGann hits him with like, "Are you having a good time? Are you having fun?" Dismissing everybody because it's easier to do that than to actually face your problems. And upon this, Beast Boy looks and says, "Next." Oh, wait, nobody. So he leaves. And as the final mic drop, McGann reminds him mental health checks are required. Black Lightning made them mandatory. There we go, Black Lightning.
Mhm.
Already proven he's a good head of the Justice League. So he must now either get help or leave all the teams he's joined.
Yep. And speaking of someone who is going through their own mental health crisis here, Connor, he's sitting on this rock, very saddened about what his next steps are because it does seem like he's been jumping around for many, many weeks. And he gets a familiar face who appears and tells him that he's got to make this next jump, and is the triumphant, inspiring voice of Superman. Um, Connor asks in return, like, what's the point of all this? Because they really are heading to nowhere. And when Superman just stares at him to offer that moment of advice, he gets attacked by Match. As we know, Match is the cloned version of Superboy, or rather, Superboy is the clone version of Match. Uh, it's confusing, but when Match attacks Superman, we see that he actually, in this moment, snaps Superman's neck, completing that mission that he was first programmed to do. So Connor in shock looks down and away. But when he looks down, he sees that his hands are now the bloodstained hands of Match. He sees that he himself is Match, and he passes out here. This leads to us opening back up to a scene where our Aqua team here are still venturing around. Wynn makes a comment at one point about this statue looking like him because they're directed from the direct line of the true thing. So that was probably the purest thing that he had meant that caused some issues in the past. But as they're starting to dig into the ground, there's some guards that are swimming towards them, and they don't recognize them. They don't see them at first because they're so focused on getting rid of the the seabed there so they get to the next level. Fortunately, Delphise does appear, using her light to distract the guards, and this is when Kaldur finally invites her to join them because he does realize that they're probably going to need her help, especially because as soon as they enter, Delphise has to use her light abilities to be basically a giant nightlight where they finally see the body of the head that they saw up earlier.
Yeah, what was their plan? Did they have flashlights even? Like,
Yeah, I was like, I figured that maybe they could light up their like Atlantean tattoos, but at the same time, I was just like, y'all did something a little stronger for that thing.
so back in Orin Land, he he pulls back to up to the jail and says, "Brother, how many times I visit you?" He says 16. And Oren's like, "Psych, I never visited your ass in jail. I left you to rot there because I was mad." So since you're misremembering that, then yeah, you probably are a clone or something. So they do confirm that this Ocean Master is indeed a clone. And to make things even worse, Arian is missing as they find out this clone. And again, the timing seems a little too convenient. In the post-credit scene, Forager gives the valedictorian speech for Happy Harbor High School.
Yeah.
I don't think this is fair.
I don't either. I was thinking the same thing. I do not think this was fair. Like, to his credit, I mean, look, it's probably like a year. Like, did his credits transfer over? That's my main question.
I don't know. Like, I don't, I never really saw him as like a teenager, so I feel
Right.
like he's older. Um, I feel like they should have given. Maybe it's alienist of me to say they should have given it to a human child, but I don't know. It just felt weird.
I feel like
Uh,
it shouldn't have been valedictorian. I feel like it would have worked if it was just like, here's a speech from a student who's just been very passionate about the community that's now been established with the introduction of aliens within our school system. Like, I feel like that could have worked. Valedictorian
yeah,
was like a very big jump.
that's a lot. Um, but in any case, he gives a nice speech before we go into Leviathan Wakes, where McGann, in a nice callback to a previous episode, she's able to shapeshift to withstand the pressure. She's down in Atlantis and confirms that this Ocean Master clone does indeed think he's authentic. And Oren really callously goes, "Poor bastard." I'm like, bro, chill, chill, all right. Um, so McGann offers to help piece together his memories whenever he's ready, but he does reject. Orm rejects it wholehandedly, and this is a bad time because right now, Oren and the leader of Zebel, his father-in-law, ain't getting along too well.
Nope, not at all. Especially because right now, and this is a 1 month time jump again. So we are now in July 3rd, where the crowd is chanting Arian's name. And now the Orin and his father-in-law are definitely not civil, but it doesn't help that the other members of the city states, the other leaders of the city states, are also stating that they too want Arian to be the leader because they are very worried that all the civil unrest amongst all of Atlantis might lead into a bigger war. And they don't even, because of everything that's happening. I love the fact that they were like, listen, y'all, we're willing to put aside our personal differences about the inequities of between our lands because we all might lose the power here. It's a little on the nose for certain things, but I'm gonna go right ahead with it.
Mm-hmm.
So now all of these city-state rulers are now saying that because of the prophecy, it's looking like it's real. Um, even though they don't have the crown as of yet, they feel like it might be in their best power to either fight it out or just let Arian be the one to become king, the High King of Atlantis.
Yeah, and it's I do respect Oren because he's like, I'm not a dictator, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So if this is what you want, it's what you have. So back with the Calder Brigade, it's been revealed again that they've been dodging lava thermal vents for weeks, literal weeks. They've been down searching for this crown, and you can tell because um Calder has a beard, so does Wind, and at this point, the Wind is talking with Lagoon Man, and they actually, in a moment of maturity for him, says, I think about all of this, what happened with Superboy. I never got to make amends with him for all this petty relationship stuff I was trying to get with McGann. And Wind also opens up and says, Calder's been stretched so thin too. Like it's only a matter of time before this really overtakes him and really like breaks him down. So right now they're getting closer after all of this. They better hope so. And all of a sudden, Big Sebastian attacks, crawls out from underneath the ocean. And this is where I now forgive Lagoon Man for all the pain he put me through in the past, because he does come in clutch in this big fight. So does Delphis, again, using those solar flare abilities to her max to help them survive. And now, eventually, using their magical powers, they just find the thing. Uh, I guess time's running out. They just got to find the thing now. They don't really have to earn it. They just find it. And back in the prison, Orm says, "You know what? I changed my mind. McGann, check out what's going on." And we get one of the craziest flashback sequences this show has ever provided.
Funny thing about this is that it gets quickly mentioned in episode 2 of this arc, I believe it was, in the post-credit scene. So here's the thing for the superhero watchers out there. It looks like we're gonna have to keep on watching for post-credit scenes, y'all, because in that scene, when Vandal is talking with Cassandra, he mentions something about Project Threnos. And it's very much a throwaway line, but we find out that the very first memory of this clone of Orm is him waking up in a pod with Vandal Savage and Ultra Humanite watching over him. Vandal is having this conversation saying that, like, all right, it looks like the clone is waking up. He's starting to get His bearings looks like the even ultra humanized use of the fast growth is working. So very much a callback to our very first season when we saw that creation of Superboy. It seems like the light is still playing around with clones. So during this time, he says, "Okay, let's make sure though that we get Simon to come in and wipe away the memory that is being created here." This leads into once again, Thing goes to sleep. People everywhere on the outside are now chanting for Arian to become the king. So now all the city state rulers now do the same. Meanwhile, back in this flashback again, Orm wakes up, hearing Savage confirm with Simon that both subjects are ready to receive Ocean Master's memories, um, based off the side-back recording. So that was also, again, what these side-backs are, just basically just all the memories of an individual put into something else. And as this clone of Orm opens his eyes, he sees across from him Project Threnos, which Savage is very happy with. And Project Threnos is basically creating a clone of his grandson Arian using the flute that he used to play 12,000 years ago to grow the body, give it all of his magical abilities, and doing a whole bunch of other stuff, which we will get to because there's so much more.
Look, this is why Vandal Savage funded 23andMe to get everybody's DNA just in case he needed to do this.
Yep.
So in the council room, the leader of Zebel, King, votes for himself in
The
terms of
goat. I swear, it's the goat right there.
I give it to him. I would do the same thing. I picture him as Dolph Lundgren, like the movies. Um, so, but everybody else votes. Let's put Arian on the throne. It's what the people want. It'll maintain order. He wins in a complete landslide. And then we get the final piece of the memories that is the most important of the clone memories. It's revealed that Vandal Savage left a clone with only memories of that 6-year bid in jail and little else of his hatred of Orin, and talks to the Arian who has Ocean Master's mind and says, "Yo, bro, you understand why we had to kill you before?" And he's like, "Yep, hey, man, I get it. What you want me to do?" He's like, Vandal says, "I want you to memorize everything you know about Arian, pretend to be him while you're really Orm, and borrow this body to go and just take over Atlantis, just so I have control of the seas like I always wanted to. By the way, we're going to program your clone to always lose to you in a fight, and you're going to have to learn how to fight without a trident. You're going to have to learn a whole new fighting style, a whole new jutsus, and act this whole plan." So that was the plan. Create a clone of Ocean Master. By the same time, put Ocean Master's mind in another person's body. So you got 2 Ocean Masters running around and profit.
It's such a wild plan, but I'm not mad at it though. It's like it could have worked. It really could have worked. It is working. It is working right now. Unfortunately, after seeing all of this, the clone Orm is quite upset. McGann is also sorry for the unforgivable things that the light did to him. So she immediately starts to try to report this to King Orin. However, at that point, once again, Arian is now the new Onyx, or the High King of Atlantis. Meanwhile, Kaldur and the rest of the group are just continuously fighting for their lives because even though they found the crown, they are now facing off against a Leviathan, hence the name of Leviathan Wakes for this episode. And they're trying to figure out how can we get out because they've been trapped for, again, about a month. So Kaldur is able to take one of his hydrokinesis swords, stabs the beast, uses it as a rudder like a ship, and continuously pulses electric shocks into Leviathan's back so that everyone else could climb on, and he can use the Leviathan to torpedo itself up to the ceiling, breaking a hole into the seabed so they can fly, or rather swim out and head on over to Zebel so they can stop everything from happening, or at least bring forward the crown to see if they can continue this part of the prophecy because they don't know about this whole secret reveal. No one does, except for King Orin. who decides to just sit there because unfortunately he can't do anything because he knows that if he comes up and says that it's his brother in disguise, everyone will think that he's just there trying to take back and keep on his rule. But he is still pleading with his brother because he does off screen, I guess, doesn't tell him that he
yeah,
knows.
yeah, off screen. I was
Yeah.
like, what?
Why didn't we just do that? I would love to have seen that on screen. We just come to him, say something random, like a cold phrase from back in the day that he knows that his brother would know. Um, so he's telling his brother, please don't do this. But the entire time, Arian slash Orm is like, listen, I've earned this. I'm taking what's rightfully mine. And in that moment, somehow, oh no, they were still in Jebel. They were still. I was gonna say there was
Oh
a very
yeah.
quick swim, but they were in the area. Kaldur's group is swimming toward with the crown, and this is when Arian Orm says, "Ah, okay, finally, my crown has arrived," and he uses magic to bring it towards him.
Oren goes like, "Hey, Orm, don't put on the one ring, please." And Oren's like, "Don't even worry about it, bro. I got it." And as soon as he puts on the crown, he just gets disintegrated and dies.
Because the Lords of Order were like, no, 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 you are not
Yeah.
talking.
So he dies, and everyone's like, "Oh, well, that wasn't supposed to happen, probably." So they're like, "Okay, I guess Oren can be king again." And Oren says, "No, no, no. I think this whole prophecy, everything is actually pointing to Mira, and they think I am fully ready to step aside, and I don't. I've never really wanted to be the king anyway. I was raised in a lighthouse. Mira was raised in a kingdom. Where you and me are not the same. So he just yields to Mira and says, "Okay, you're gonna just let you be rule." And Mira steps forward and gives this inspiring speech to unite everyone. At this point, I was like, "This feels exactly like what happened in the Martian plotline, except with less racism."
Yeah.
Um, so Oren's like, "All right, now that that's done, I'm gonna be a house husband. I'm also gonna take up the name Aquaman." And Kaldur's like, "Oh man, I guess I'll have to like find a new name." And he's like, "No, no, no. Look, the league's got 4 Green Lanterns, multiple Flashes, which is not that true anymore. um,
Oh, yeah,
we
that's true. No,
we
no, they
can.
still got. I think maybe Jake joined the Justice League. I don't know.
I was like, yeah, maybe. But I was like, that's a stretch to me. But he's like, we can have multiple Aquamen, including Lagoon Man, because Lagoon Man is just named the next Aquaman for
Word.
some reason.
Like, no, he did good this episode, but my man is a father. He's a new father. Let him be. Oh
um,
gosh.
And in this messy aftermath, Vandal is really salty about his crazy plan that could have easily backfired at any time by just a simple mental search from McGann on Arian, which I don't know why no one tried in the first place. Um,
Mm.
so he's salty about that. New Orm is free to go because he can't be held responsible for his OG crimes or brainwash crimes. And now it's time to check in on Calder.
Yeah, so at the announcement that we were going to have three Aquamen, Calder says, this is a good time because even though we have three, I think it'll be good if we actually have two for a bit because he decides to finally take the break that he has been working for towards this entire time. He kisses Wind, and we get like a bunch of montages, non-animated montages where we see that Mira is sitting on the Atlantean throne with Aquaboy or Arthur on her lap and Orin by her side. Um, Aquaman 3 or Lagan is holding his newborn child with his wife and husband. Calder is relaxing on the couch with Wind, with Delphi sitting nearby. Meanwhile, we see Superboy is still stuck in this dimension. He's still on this rock, sitting next to Ghosty, still distraught over killing Superman. He's calling himself a beast. And as he's just sitting there, remembering these moments of rage and violence that he's had back since like it's more so in season one, um, he sees a school bus flying by. Uh, Again, we don't know how the school bus that Clarion was operating was jumping through time and space quite like this, but I guess we don't know how time works in this place. But as he tries to scream for the bus to come and pick him up, unfortunately, very much like a bus in Brooklyn, it did not stop for him. And as he sits back down, this is where we see that he's afraid of himself losing his mind. And the person who give him some comfort now is the other half of his biological makeup, Lex Luthor, who says the phrase "Red Sun." We close our episodes here with an end credit scene of Kaldur talking to Black Canary. He's talking about how everything in his life has started since freeing Superboy from Cadmus 10 years ago, actually almost to that day. And he talks about how much pride he's had in forming a team, but recognizing the cost of it because he's lost his friends, he's lost someone he was in love with. His whole life has changed and is continuously changing. And he breaks down and cries because he remembers how much of his life has changed, and he's just coming to terms with all that. So as we come to terms with the ends of this episode here, this arc here, we'll leave you with this podcast and the Forgotten Entertainment family that you should be listening to the next time you're not listening to us.
Hello there, I'm Colleen.
I'm Anders.
And I'm Daniel.
We're three nerds that met through our love of science fiction and fantasy storytelling. Of course, one of our favorites is George Lucas's signature achievement, Star Wars.
And if there's one thing the internet definitely doesn't have enough of, it's nerds talking about Star Wars. So here we are with yet another Star Wars podcast, where each week we discuss one of the films in the current Star Wars canon.
From the sands of Tatooine to the levels of Coruscant, we cover it all. Yet another Star Wars podcast is available wherever you get your podcast and is part of the Forgotten Entertainment family.
So we got the Aquaman arc here. It was an arc.
It certainly was.
If you had to choose from our 4 sets of episodes, we got Nautical Twilight, we got Ebb Tide, Emergency Dive, and Leviathan Wakes. Which of these episodes are you giving the most whelmed award episode to?
I'm going to give it to Nautical Twilight because it started this arc off very strong. Kaldur was exploring a very different type of grief, one where you just move on. You don't let anything stop, you just keep going. That's something, I can definitely identify with, the urge to just go through the grief and not let anything get in the way to try to overcome it. There are a lot of exciting concepts introduced here of this underwater society, this Atlantis we had just got to know and got into of its origin, and really great scenes with Violet and following up on a long lingering plotline for Violet and discovering their identity. And yeah, it really had a lot of promise to what this arc could have been. Unfortunately, from this point in, it is just wild and chaotic. So many plot points are thrown out, so many different story beats. The Beast Boy stuff is trying to pay off. The McGann stuff is trying to pay off. They're trying to set up this Connor mystery. And it just feels like they're throwing way too much at the wall. And we already knew the fire volcano was going to be fine because we had just seen it. Mm-hmm. The time skips, the wild plans from Savage. It just felt like every episode had the potential to do something great, but ultimately, I don't think this arc serves Kaldur very well. I think he's very inactive and ineffective in this arc, to the point where his Lagoon Man he gets his same title and doesn't do anything. Like, it would have been nice if my arte alteration here, make it so at the end of this arc, make the arc more about Lagoon Man and Kaldur, who have legitimate beef with each other. Mm-hmm. Make it about them being forced to help come together to save Atlantis, just like Orm and Orinar do a reflection of it. And at the end of this arc, they overcome their differences, and Kaldur chooses to name Lagoon Man the next Aquaman in his place. That would have been natural than Orin randomly doing it for no reason whatsoever. And I think while I do like, exploring and representing different kinds of couple relationships with the throuple, I think stepping away from that with the baby aspect of it, at least, and focusing more on Kaldur and Lagoon Man would have been more helpful and paid off this arc. Because if these 4 episodes didn't need to necessarily follow each other, because so many random things happen, so many time skips. So the most normal episode, Nautical Twilight, is where I'm the most whelmed. What about you?
I want to definitely say that I felt like this whole story was an Atlantis story. Like that moment was just like it didn't really have that much Calder. I agree with that so much, and that's why I don't even even see it as a Calder arc. I see it more as an Atlantis arc. So, while my favorite episode definitely was Nautical Twilight, I'm gonna have to go with Leviathan Wake just because it just wraps it up. I just need it wrapped up
That is fair.
because it's like so much happened. I love the dynamic of learning of the city states, how they are in Atlantis. Because honestly, this entire time I thought Atlantis was just like you just get one big place, but no, they got it like in like a full on state. Like I love that. That was like a great introduction to like how this whole place looks, how it's governed, how Calder is navigating this world. And because we never got that much of it really. It's always been like Calder has been on the surface world as a member of the team or under Black Manta's like working alongside Black Manta as a mole. Like all those stories, we never got a chance to see Calder at home. So as an Atlantis arc, Leviathan, the fact that it just wraps it up, like I feel like a lot more reveals of shocking things. Like was not expecting to see Aryan Orm get turned into dust. Honestly, the only reason why that also works is because you needed to have the Zatanna arc before.
Yep.
So a lot of this arc, you need to have prior knowledge, which is something that's a bit upsetting to me because Nautical Twilight felt like that was the episode where it's just like I could go into this fresh. But given that this is the story that they were trying to tell, Leviathan Wakes, because this is where we finally hear about what in the world is Project Threnos. Was not expecting that at all. Don't even know how that came to even be. But I think the most important thing about it that came out of that full episode was Aquaman realizing that he was useless this entire time and actually giving the crown over to Mira, because that felt natural to me. Like every single time I think of like Aquaman, even though he is truly known as the king of Atlantis and king of the undersea and all that, I feel like Mira also always should have been the one to actually have that title. So that's why Leviathan Wakes made it for me. But again, I really wish that we had more time to like focus on Calder. I love that idea of Calder and Lagan having to team up in this weird way. Because the other thing too is that like they keep trying to connect these since Superboy's death, they keep trying to connect how the team is upset about Superboy's death. However, I'm not seeing it from anybody.
Yeah, and it's the because you put him with a bunch of characters that don't, from my memory, don't even come back in any significant way by the end. And this is also notably an arc where, as even though definitely there are some criticisms to be had about all the arcs before this, what you can say the uniting factor is there is Young Justice. There is a sense of mentorship, even if it's not done the best. Artemis and Orphan, Zatanna and her proteges, McGann and her sister also mentoring Gar at the same time to eventually think more strategically and be a detective and stuff like that while they're on Mars. There's an aspect of mentorship that carries over and carries the spirit of Young Justice that we fell in love with, of young heroes learning how to do this. You don't get that here.
You don't.
They're all adults. Delphi's, let's be honest, she's not going to help. She's not going to be much use in the future arcs because she can't breathe air. So it's just the facts. So you don't feel like the show is moving really in the Young Justice area until you cut away from the Aquaman stuff, which again cheapens the plot line for Aquaman and Calder, which is a shame because he has some really good moments. His speech about I was so scared to take a breath when I first got onto land, and I've been holding that breath until now because of my grief and pain. That's great stuff. I wish the show would have cared about him. I really do.
Yeah, it does feel like they turned Aquaman here into like the guaranteed leader, but not really showing like how much he had to deal with the fact of being that leader. Like it happens in that one conversation that he has with Nick when it's just like, hey, are you sure you should take a break? Like that is the only time that you're actually taking into account Calder as a person versus like he's the leader, he's the strong one. He's it's tough to see that like this man who has been his entire life been a leader undercover doing all these things to try to fight the good fight. And no, it doesn't feel like as if anyone's really taking care of him. Even like at the times where people are like they want to take care of him, it seems like they're just condemning him for not taking care of himself. Versus anyone's just like, I'm gonna actively step in your way and tell you, hey, take a break, bro. Like, stop you from doing this. It just seems like they're just like, all right, he's not gonna stop. I'll just go along with him. And that doesn't always work.
Mhm.
So while I know we're probably not going to get a season 5 here of Young Justice, I do hope that um, this person, this Calder character in general, maybe in some other continuity, he does get that moment where it's just like someone's going to step in his way and actively do something to take care of him.
Yeah. Give him some shine, people. He
Mm-hmm.
deserves it.
Mm-hmm. I will say also one good thing about this arc too was that I did like the varying scenes of what mental health could look like across different individuals. With like Calder, it's the pushing through. It's with Beast Boy having that intervention and seeing the different stages of depression and mostly so anger coming from him. And also with Superboy kind of seeing like his mind kind of breaking down because of the situation he's in. Um, while it's not like the greatest way to show a lot of these mental health things, I felt like it was real because it does kind of connect with what I've personally seen in the past or what you even see, hear, read about, or hear about in other stages. So I think that like they did a good job of at least showing different versions of mental health in this episode, in this arc. And thankfully though that they are also highlighting like mental health checks that are like mandatory from the team and even having open conversations with like Violet and her somewhat mother about like religion and identity. So there are still these deep
Yeah.
conversations popping up in this arc. I think, but I agree. I think it was just too much being thrown in all at once.
Yeah, and I do agree. There are really the show's depiction of mental health is really great in a general sense.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll definitely be easier to talk about once we have all the pieces, but um when the characters are allowed to move forward, and there is some merit to them being stuck for a while. I absolutely do agree we need an episode, at least one episode where Beast Boy is refusing help and
Mm-hmm.
everything. But I think again this is a thing where if things are lined up a little bit better, we can get these reinforced messages really tight together. If Superboy starts coping by these hallucinations at the same time that we see Beast Boy's own unhealthy coping strategies, then you have a double reinforced message across
Mm-hmm.
the board. They're almost there. It's almost there, but they're at different stages at this point. And at one point, they're gonna go really different directions. So I think this is somewhere where arranging things a little bit better, we could get a really hit. But overall, the pieces that are coming together in each of their stories are really strong. Um, and that a testament and credit to the writers on that.
Yeah, definitely agree. And speaking of writers with strong stories, we're gonna hop on over to the comic section of this, because I think we've briefly covered Cal's kind of origin in the past. It is a little convoluted, so bear with me. But I guess really the first thing that I can do is actually talk about his namesake more so, and that is Kaldur'ahm, by which we mean his father, Calvin Durham, who we've met in the past in previous episodes of Young Justice, but here we got a chance to see him acting within the round table of King Arthur here and whatnot. So he was first introduced as a lieutenant of Black Manta, and this was when he decided to join under Black Manta's cause because he was under the impression, due to Black Manta telling him so, that he wanted to gain control of the oceans because he felt like it would be a great place for the African American race for them to be in control of 3/4 of the world.
I mean, okay, let's go along with this for a while.
Yeah. And he did. He went along with this for a while. So he was able to rise up to ranks to become the lieutenant, but the more he fought alongside Black Manta, the more he realized, like, hold up, this guy isn't talking about Black liberation at all. He is literally just creating an army to fight Aquaman. And Cal had no beef with Aquaman. So he was like, listen, I'm going to just defect, tell Aquaman what's going on. And when he tried to do so, Black Manta attacked him. The other thing was that Black Manta experimented on his people, so he on his henchmen here. So he gave Cal in some way gills. So at first they weren't working, but upon the attack, these gills finally worked when he got thrown into the water. So
That's classic how to learn how to swim.
yeah. Damn, it really is actually. So yeah, that was also the answer to your question, is like, how did he get gills if he was from San Diego? Speaking of San Diego, after he helped Aquaman defeat Black Manta in this, because he now had to live under the water, things happen, Infinite Crisis, San Diego got sunken and got renamed Sub Diego, and he was then currently the mayor of Sub Diego.
Sub Diego. Okay. Okay. Sure.
So that now brings us to, now that we have like the namesake of why we decided to go with Kaldur'ahm, that brings us now to Kaldur'ahm, or who's the name of the character in our Young Justice series, but in comics it actually goes by the name Jackson Hyde. And this is the second Aqualad in history. So this version of Aqualad first appeared in Brightest Day comics by Jeff Johns in issue number 4 back in 2010. And then a couple months later was when we got our animated series, the premiere of Young Justice. So this is where we got introduced to Kaldur'ahm as Aqualad. And while the name of our favorite Aqualad is in honor of the original character, the story is a little bit more, his origin's a little bit different. Because he does have 2 origin stories, but the very original one is that Black Manta met a Jebel woman. The 2 of them had a child. Unfortunately, that child was abandoned and was then saved by Mira before she was queen, brought to the surface world where he was adopted, and then found his way back to Atlantis.
Complicated.
Yeah. It is wild. I think the reason why they decided to create the origin story like this is because it's actually a little similar to Garth's, the very first Aqualad's origin story, where he too was saved by Mira due to time portals and evil uncles and all that, but we're not going to talk about that. So the proper origin story comes up now in DC Rebirth, in Teen Titans Rebirth number 6, 7, 9, 10, and 11 in 2016.
He has got an epic story to tell, guys.
Oh yes, it is quite epic. Honestly, I wish they kind of turned this into a movie. And also just fun fact, issues number 8 and the special that happened between 8 and 9, they are just connected to a larger story arc that they were trying to do called Lazarus Contract. It's a crazy read, but it has really cool cover art. So I would say, definitely say, if you find them, I have them all, find them, collect them. They're cool to see. Fun fact, Deathstroke gets Speed Force powers. Anyway.
Oh, God. He's already a menace.
With these damn micro expressions. So this arc that takes place starting with Teen Titans Rebirth number 6 is called Rise of Aqualad, Blood of Manta. And we get introduced to Jackson Hyde, who is Kaldur in this universe. He's living in New Mexico. And it introduces him as like an outsider who's always felt like he's an outsider, who had this mom, Lucia, who is basically the true definition of a helicopter parent. We already know by seeing him that he already has his powers because he's already using them. He has the power of water kinesis, but he's just very unsure about his origin because he never got it from his mom. And his mom is quite upset whenever he does use his powers because she's like, you're already so different. And she states, you're constantly dyeing your hair blonde. You have these Atlantean marks. So he does know he's from Atlantis. You have these Atlantean marks. Fortunately, though, we've just been telling people that they're tattoos, and you're attracted to guys. So She's telling him that she doesn't like the fact a little bit that he's so different. So don't use your water powers because that will make you even extra different. He's quite upset over this, obviously. So he decides to go hang out with his secret boyfriend. So as they're hanging out, Jackson is showing video footage of like the Teen Titans operating in their own missions and whatnot that have been captured on the news. And even though his boyfriend's name is Kenny, Kenny is just like, we can't really show our true selves. At least, the Teen Titans have it lucky because they are able to use their powers to do wherever they want. They have money, they have fame, they have all of this. And this is when Jackson decides he's going to show his boyfriend his abilities, his water kinesis. Mm-hmm. This freaks out Kenny so much that he's just like, I never want to speak to you again.
Full disclosure, I thought he was going to die. Just like right then and there, just die.
This upsets Jackson so much that he decides to run away from home, and he figures that the only place that would truly accept him will be the Teen Titans. And it also helps out that the Teen Titans tower is located near a body of water, which he felt is always called out to him, but he never understood why. So he enters Titans Tower. In that moment, the Titans are facing off against King Shark.
Oh, perfect timing.
Words. It's a great audition. So he ends up joining the fight. But unfortunately, Damian, this is, again, in DC Rebirth, this is when Damian has decided to basically kidnap members of the former Teen Titans team, such as Starfire, Beast Boy, and Raven. Also Kid Flash. This is a younger Black version of Kid Flash because of the fact that the CW Flash was very popular. CW Kid Flash was very popular. Mm-hmm. So as he has his team, Jackson's able to help in the fight. And Robin's just like, I still don't want you on my team because you were not chosen to be a part of my team. King Shark does escape, but he ends up leading some kind of hostage situation. So when Jackson goes into fight once again, is able to defeat King Shark, this is when Robin decides, all right, because you helped out so much, we'll let you join on the team as a probationary member. He gave Jackson a suit that he was designing for underwater combat. I don't know what Damian was going to do underwater.
He's ready for, like his dad, he's ready for anything.
Except for the water pressure. So he gives him this suit, and as all this is happening, he's just happy to find some kind of place on the team with people who are like him. And this all gets reported on the news once again. Jackson's mother, watches this and is very shocked to see her son. But she's more so focusing on this necklace that he's wearing. And at the same time, King Shark is reporting to his boss about the failed attempt of what he had. And this is when he is revealed that his boss is Black Manta, who is also interested in the necklace that Jackson is wearing. Fast forward a couple of issues. Jackson decides to meet up with his mom for lunch. This is where she reveals that this entire time when he's been searching for answers to his abilities, wondering if they came from his father, she reveals that it's actually from her, as she produces this water statue right in front of him. And he's quite upset because she's been hiding his true identity from him, thinking this entire time that all of his answers could have been from his father when his answers were right there in front of him. So he walks away upset, and as he leaves, both of them are attacked by Black Manta. He tries to stop Black Manta from attacking his mother, and Black Manta states, it's very disrespectful for you to be speaking and attacking your father like this.
That's like a real Papa brought your pipe moment there,
Yeah. So Black Manta agrees to stop attacking Lucia, Jackson's mother, if Jackson decides to go along with him. So while in captivity, Black Manta reveals the true story about his origin here. So Black Manta shares that back in the day when the necklace that he has on his neck is actually a map to a treasure, this treasure called the Black Pearl. No, not from Pirates of the Caribbean, but it does have a lot of Pirates of the Caribbean themes to it. This Black Pearl was worn by a famous pirate that unfortunately perished at the Gates of Zebel, which is also known as the Bermuda Triangle. And yeah. So he decided many years later, like centuries or so, to try and see if he could find it himself, but he knew that he needed a guide, especially a Zebel citizen to help guide him through there. And that person was fortunately Lucia. And he pretended to be someone that was just lost, venturing around in the sea, and decided to trick this woman into being his guide and fall. And they did end up falling for each other. And he shared his real name, which is David Hyde. Unsure if they got married, but she ends up taking the name Lucia Hyde. So once he wooed her, and she decided to test to see if he truly wanted to be with her by switching, because she knew where the seashell was that led to the map of the Black Pearl. So she switched it out with a fake one. And when he tried to open this fake seashell, he realized that it was all a trick done by her. He attacked her and swam away. But unbeknownst to him, they had already conceived their child, who was Jackson.
That is a crazy way to explain how your parents met.
Yeah, this is not the How I Met Your Mother that I needed to know. So it was revealed then that the seashell necklace that Jackson has been wearing this entire life is actually the real map that led to the Black Pearl. So when he opened it up, there was this holographic image that came out, and they decided to head on over. Jackson decides to stay with his father here because he's hoping that maybe he can build some kind of bond with his father, even to the point where in this initial meeting, he even shares with his father that he's gay, and his father doesn't even shame him for it. So he's feeling very welcomed and comforted in this space. However, once they get closer to the location of the Black Pearl, they get attacked by this monster. And Black Manta, familiar with Atlantean magic, tells his son that you have more power than you think, and finds a way to, I guess, like force his son's magic out to create this like giant structure that Jackson's never created before. So he's feeling even better about the decision that he made of being close with his father. Unfortunately, though, this all turns to failure as the thing leading them to the Black Pearl closes off, and Black Manta starts attacking Jackson, throwing him against the cage that's holding the Black Pearl, because he tells him, "I didn't need you here. I just needed someone of Zebellian blood to get my prize." So he steals the Black Pearl. This gives Manta like this crazy magical powers of being able to control sea life and create constructs of giant sea creatures. And as he brings this to the surface, he's met by the Teen Titans, because Lucia, after seeing what happened to her son, decided to rush over to the Titans Tower to tell them about what was going on. And this leads into this huge battle. Jackson is seeing his friends and his mother fall around him. And this is when he activates his full powers, finally defeating his father and destroying the Black Pearl.
This sounds like it could be a whole arc and a half of
Right?
Justice.
So Manta's taken in. Jackson's a full new member of the team now. And it all ends with Jackson hanging out by the water. He gets greeted by Tempest, who is Garth, who is the original Aqualad. The two of them get a chance to talk, and Tempest states, no one's actually using the Aqualad moniker right now. If you want to, I'll be honored if you will take it. Jackson agrees. He's the new Aqualad. He heads on home to Titan's Tower, where he's greeted by his mother and the Titans as they throw him a party with a cake that's shaped like a giant T.
Okay. I guess that's a fair reward for saving all your lives.
Word. It was like, I feel like I need a whole meal, not just a cake.
Some algae, maybe? Like, come on, hook me up.
Word, actually. And with that wraps up his story. So currently, right now, he's still active in the DC universe. He very much in this original run, he very much looked like Kaldur in the animated series. However, he has now been wearing more of his locks. Sometimes he still dyes his hair blonde. Most of the time, though, it does seem like he does have these darker locks in his head. But he still is now even being trained by like Aquaman, still kicking ass and taking names and that kind of thing. It's kind of great to see that he's out there and active still. And in fact, he is still one of the most like prominent gay heroes in the DC universe. I believe every June he's actually one of the first people that is actually on the Pride Month that they have designated for DC in general. So it's kind of cool to see that he's still out there and active.
Good for him.
Mhm.
I really do like Calder. I think or I should say Jackson. He's a really cool character. And I hope they keep using more of him, especially in this new DCU.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, the story is right there if they want to make the movie. I would actually buy a ticket to this to see, maybe get the person who's actually playing Black Manta right now to do this.
Mm-hmm.
It would be great. It would be truly great. All right. Well, that wraps up our episode. Join us next time as we continue on this arc. We'll be heading to not Dakota City as we meet up with Rocket to see what she's up to. In the meantime, be sure to check us out on our socials and Patreon for more content. And be sure to take care of yourselves. And remember the most important thing of all. If you end up being trapped in a cave for a couple weeks, pack a razor or an electric shaver. I believe most of them are waterproof because you don't want to end up with like a month's worth of just beard and hair, unless you're into that kind of thing. I personally just am not.
Yeah, and if Vandal Savage asks about your DNA, say no.
Mm-hmm.
Say no. Your brain will end up in an Atlantean king that lived like 3,000 years ago. Guaranteed. Every time.
Or even worse, your body will be taken over by Orm.
I don't know what's worse. I don't know what's worse.
Thanks again for listening. Yet Another DC Animated Podcast is a proud part of the Forgotten Entertainment family. If you liked what you heard, leave a review and share us with a friend. Also be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcast and on social media at YA DC Animated Pod.